Hello and welcome back to the Frogs of War podcast. I'm Anthony North. That's Russ Hodges. We're here to talk you through the week in TCU athletics. And this week, TCU Baseball has been in Omaha. We are recording Wednesday night, and the wounds are still fresh coming off a loss in the Horned Frogs' fourth game to be eliminated in the semifinals of the Men's College World Series. But to close out an incredible season, a remarkable run from these Horned Frogs as TCU came up from the depths of looking like a non-playoff team to making it all the way into Omaha and then winning two games in Omaha. Quite a remarkable season. We'll get into all of that. But Russ, how are you doing?
I think every TCU fan, including myself, jumped off the couch when Braden Taylor made
Mm.
contact with that ball in the ninth inning. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better swing on a ball, hit 110 miles per hour off the bat, 407 feet. A home run in probably every single major league ballpark, except for a couple. And unfortunately, the baseball gods frowning upon us Horned Frog faithful at the end of this game today. But you said it, a tremendous second half of the season for TCU, a team that at one point was 3 or 4 games above 500 and clinging to life as a potential at-large bubble tournament team. And Kirk Saarloos, head coach of the Frogs, talked about how the players took accountability, took responsibility, and we saw several players, including the freshmen, whether it was Cole Klecker or Ben Abelt or Carson Bowen, Anthony Silva, played well beyond their years over the second half of the season and did not look like freshmen whatsoever. So, um, a disappointing loss today, but I think you have to be really excited about the future that this team has and to get on this kind of run to win a Big 12 tournament, winning a regional, winning a super regional at home, and then going to the College World Series and taking on some of the best teams in the entire country and coming away with 2 wins. You have to be really enthusiastic about that. 44 wins for the Frogs, most in a season since 2017, which of course was the last time they went to the College World Series. And a lot of players are coming back. A lot of freshmen that I mentioned, some juniors that'll have some interesting decisions to make, but really exciting week of baseball. It seemed like every pitch mattered in every game. Every out meant so much, and it was just high level, not just from TCU, but from every team in this College World Series. It was just high level baseball going on. It's been really exciting to watch, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it unfolds this weekend.
Yeah, it sets up for an incredible finals. I know we've got Wake Forest and LSU just went final, so they'll be playing a second game before facing off with Florida in the finals. So, uh, yeah, this College World Series has just been incredible. Every single game has come down to little moments, and it's been a thrill. It's been a highlight of the sport and why it's should be considered one of the most exciting sporting events in the entire sporting calendar. Um, I guess just to wrap up on the season before we jump into these games, the run that TCU went on at the end of May, sitting there 23-20, um, and the calendar turns to May, and since then TCU has lost just 4 games total, each one by one run apiece. Um, one each to Cal State Fullerton, Kansas State, Oral Roberts, and now Florida to be eliminated in the College World Series. I mean, and along that way, not only just winning those the conference tournament and the regional and the super regional, but sweeping the conference tournament and the regional and the super regional, taking 0 losses in that time. Just an incredible run. And like you said, just everything to be proud of for this team and everything to look forward to for the future. I mean, Kirk Saarloos in just his second season as the head coach of the Horned Frogs leads this team to this point into the semifinals. So, I think Frog fans have some disappointment and certainly reason to be. It's an unfortunate way for the season to come to an end in such kind of a heartbreaking, dramatic fashion. But you pretty much can't come away from this season or from this run in Omaha with anything other than pride and support for that team that they did things the right way and shown a bright light on TCU as a university. So with that, we can jump into the game from way back at Friday night. It feels like we've lived and died several times since this game took place. It feels like ages ago now because we've been through this entire roller coaster of this tournament. But TCU drops a heartbreaker on Friday night, gets not walked off. It was the top of the ninth inning that the home run was hit. I know the announcing
Yeah,
team there
shout out
had
Carl Ravitch with the worst call of the season on a walk off.
he had a little bit of trouble there with the call, but it took away a little bit of the moment for Oral Roberts. But it a bad way to lose a game. You don't like to give up a 3-run home run in the ninth inning to surrender a lead in your opening game of a double elimination tournament. And yeah, I guess Russ, walk us through this game. TCU comes away with the loss. There's some moments through this game. What were the key points? What were the takeaways?
Yeah, throughout most of this game, things were pretty straightforward. The one thing that I will bring up is I know when we did the podcast recapping the Super Regional, we talked about, what's a minor tweak that this team could make, and we also had this idea brought up after the regional. And one thing that I had mentioned was Cole Klecker coming out and giving TCU a really good performance in the Super Regional. That was something that needed to happen. It did happen, and that was a big reason why the Frogs were able to sweep that series. And after the Super Regional, we talked about some more little minor tweaks. And one thing that I brought up was base running because TCU had some base running mistakes against Indiana State that they were able to overcome in that Super Regional. In this game, they were not able to overcome some of those mistakes. TCU made 3 outs on the bases, and they made them in different ways. You had Trey Richardson getting caught stealing, trying to go to second base. You had Curtis Byrne getting doubled off at first base on a fly ball to right field. And then Cole Fontenelle kind of got caught napping on his lead at first base and he got picked off. So you have a runner getting thrown out, a runner getting picked off, and another runner getting doubled off. And those are free outs that you're giving away to a really talented team. When you're playing at this high of a level on this stage, you just can't make maybe one of those mistakes you can get away with, not three of them. And that was a reason why this game was still tied at 2 going into the bottom of the 8th inning. But things started to get pretty hairy for Oral Roberts there. And Elijah Nunez hits a 1-out single. Carson Bowen draws a walk. And then they go to Cade Denton, who's their elite closer. High 90s, two-seam fastball, really nasty breaking pitch. Came in with, I think, a 1.85 ERA, only 11 walks on the season, just lights out stuff, and not a guy that you want to face at the end of a game. And I think we had talked about him last week as well, how dangerous he could be out of the bullpen, but he didn't really have his best stuff in this contest. He really struggled with command, and it was kind of surprising to see that. Cole Fontenelle is able to draw a bases loaded walk after they intentionally walked Braden Taylor. Cade Denton fell behind in that at bat, and they just decided to put him on. And Cole Fontenelle has been scorching hot in this postseason, and the benefit for TCU of teams not wanting to pitch to Braden Taylor is that there's going to be one or two, maybe three guys on base for Cole Fontenelle, who's going to give you a great at bat anytime he's up there. So he draws a bases loaded walk on a full count. Trey Richardson gets hit by a pitch on the shoulder, and then Curtis Byrne hits a sacrifice fly. So TCU scores 3 runs off a very, very good closer for Oral Roberts. Takes a 5-2 lead in the bottom of the 8th. So we go to the top of the 9th, and as a fan, I'm feeling pretty confident at this point because you had Luke Savage come out to throw the top of the eighth, and he only needed 9 pitches to get 3 outs at the top of the eighth. So I felt good about Luke Savage coming back out for the ninth. But then Oral Roberts started to do what Oral Roberts has been doing throughout this tournament, and they just refused to back down and they refused to quit. First batter hits a ground ball third base side. Braden Taylor makes a nice pick on it, but it would have been a really tough play at first. I don't think he gets the runner at first if he makes a good throw, but tries to make a really tough play and winds up throwing the ball away. So you put a runner at second, the runner advances second on the bad throw. So Oral Roberts has a runner in scoring position. Next two batters come up and hit back-to-back singles. One run scores. It's now a 5-3 game. Still no outs in the ninth. Oral Roberts tries a sac bunt play that doesn't work out. Luke Savage is able to get a strikeout on a high fastball. So 1 out in the frame, and then Blaze Brothers, I think it was, who came up, the number 9 hitter, and not the prototypical number 9 hitter that you would see in most lineups. That's typically your worst hitter, somebody that's in the game for defensive purposes. Much like TCU with Austin Davis, a really good hitter and a threat to swipe some bags out of that 9 hole. Blaze Brothers is batting 300. He's a good hitter, a hitter that you have to treat with some respect out of that 9 hole. And he was just on Savage in this at bat. He took a slider inside and pulled it down the third baseline. Could have easily been an RBI double or a 2 RBI double. It was foul by maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 inches. And then Savage just parks a fastball, belt high, right down the pipe, and Blaze Brothers crushes it to left field. And just like that, with one swing of the bat, TCU goes from being up 5-3 to being down 6-5. And the Frogs get 2 runners on base in the bottom of the ninth inning. Braden Taylor's the last man up, hits a line drive to left center. Oral Roberts makes the catch. They win the game. And immediately, and unsurprisingly, I guess, the dialogue on social media after the game was, did Kirk Saarloos make the right decision to leave Luke Savage in the game prior to giving up that 3-run home run? Because you do have Garrett Wright in the bullpen. He's been pitching well this season. He's been pitching well lately. He's your quote-unquote closer. I wouldn't say TCU really has you don't have Riley Farrell or Durbin Feltman coming out of
No.
the bullpen. And that's not a knock on Garrett Wright at all, because he's a really good pitcher with very good stuff. But TCU has had 3 or 4 different guys close out games this year. It's been sort of a closer by committee in some respects, in that whoever's still pitching in the game in the ninth inning, if they're pitching well, then you finish the game off. So I think TCU fans, and Anthony, I'm curious what your thoughts on this is, because a lot of TCU fans were upset with Kirk Saarloos for not making the pitching change when he made the mound visit. And for me, because of how good Savage looked in the 8th inning, again, needed only 9 pitches to get 3 outs. And also considering the fact that he's been one of your best relievers over the last 3 weeks or so of the season, you go all the way back to the start of the Big 12 tournament, I was fine with leaving him in for one more batter. I think for me, honestly, I was thinking worst case scenario, he gives up another single, because the 2 singles he gave up really weren't hit very hard. They just found the gaps in the outfield. So I'm thinking, okay, he walks a batter, he gives up another base hit, then I'll take him out and put Garrett Wright in. I was not expecting a 3-run homer there, and I don't think many TCU fans were either. But I didn't have a huge problem with leaving Savage in the game at that point. What did you think?
Yeah, I'm not going to crush Saarloos on this one. I think I'm not sure Garrett Wright had pitched. I was just trying to pull up his stats from prior to this, because I don't think he had pitched before this very
Mhm.
much. He didn't
He
pitch in the
made
regional. He did pitch 1 inning in the super regional
correct.
um, against Indiana State. So he got 1 inning pitched. So I guess he had been out there relatively recently. Um, but yeah, I think you're totally right there. Of Savage is your guy, and you're probably feeling pretty okay. They're eating into this lead, but where hindsight is 2020. It's very easy to look back and question it, and say once Brothers hit that first pitch foul, uh, it, I think everyone immediately was like, "Uh oh." I know I was I
Yep.
let out an
Mhm.
uh oh, and that's where I don't know. I think you may just have to, okay, this guy's on one. Let's reset the clock here and see what Garrett Wright can do against this guy and give him a totally different look, because what Savage was throwing out there was clearly they had caught up to what he was tossing. Um, I think it's kind of unfortunate. I don't think it's the wrong call. Either way, if you bring in Wright and Wright gives up the home run, then it's the wrong call to make the switch. Um, it's the kind of thing of baseball's going to do what it does, and you can coach around it or you can plan around it, but um, as it turned out, it was a batter or two too late to pull Savage out of there for this game, but in the moment, I don't think it's one of those. Yeah, I did see some of the nonsense on Twitter. I think I tweeted something like it turned out a couple batters too late. But yeah, people talking about like, oh, Kirk Sarlis, oh, we got to fire Kirk. Come on, people, get a hold of yourself.
People were a
What
little
is wrong with you?
emotional. Yeah, people were a little emotional, and I think it'd be one thing too if Savage was in this, if he was in a closer role previously and was blowing games left and right, that'd be another thing. But you go back to what he did in the Big 12 tournament, in the regional, in the super regional, he's been pitching very well. So I think he would deserve a little more benefit of the doubt as opposed to someone like a Cam Brown or a Sam Stottenborough, who you're probably going to have more of a early hook for than someone like Luke Savage, who's a veteran player. He's a junior. He's been a very good player the last few years and um, hasn't had those kinds of innings very frequently in his career. So I think we're both kind of in alignment in that it's a hindsight is 2020, but in that particular moment, if TCU were to be in that situation again, I would probably still leave Savage out there.
Yeah, and as it turned out, even after all of that, you still come to the bottom of the ninth with Braden Taylor at the plate with the chance to tie or take the lead. Um, and he gets good contact on the ball. And obviously, this was the case in the fourth game, but you know that ball lands, falls a little short or carries a little long, and we're talking about a TCU victory out of that game, regardless of what happened in the top of the inning. So, um, it's it's unfortunate to lose that first game, and it really, it sets you up in a bad spot, to have to come out of the losers bracket after the first game, particularly, if you think that you should be able to take care of a 4 seed Oral Roberts. I mean, we talked about how dangerous they could be, but realistically, the best path for TCU is to get that first game so that you can have an opportunity to win the second game. That's the best part about winning the first game, is having the chance to win the second game and move into that kind of that throne spot of being able to win win one of three or one of two in the next two in that the semifinal. But I guess in any case, even dropping this game, you always were going to have to be in a spot where most likely you have to beat Oral Roberts once and Florida twice to get into the final. Um, but having lost the first game, what it means is you get an extra game against Virginia. Um, uh, National seed, extremely good team, all Americans on the squad, and that seemed like it was going to be a very difficult game. And so we'll go ahead and turn the page. Unless Russ, did you have anything else on the first game before we move on to game two in the losers bracket?
Nope, let's turn that page and let's get to a little bit of more positive stuff here over this next 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, yeah. So that turns the page to the Virginia game in an elimination game, and TCU matching up with what I kind of had thought was going to be Virginia's ace. I'm surprised he didn't go in game one actually, but Connolly Early was the pitcher for Virginia, and TCU started with Sam Stottenborough and had a kind of a bullpen game after he pitched 4 2/3 with Ben Abelt and Garrett Wright coming out to kind of finish it off. But TCU comes away with a 4-3 victory, a thriller in this one that obviously TCU needed. It allowed the Horned Frogs to continue their streak of winning it whenever they reach Omaha, that TCU will win at least one game in Omaha. So it was good to keep that streak alive and to not go 0-2 and kind of feel like this whole thing was a whole waste. But TCU, this game got started right from the start, scoring right off the bat, and still felt like maybe some missed opportunities early, but a huge number of left on base for the Frogs on this one. I think 12 for the game. TCU had 12 hits as well. So uh, a game that probably TCU could have really ran away with, but really strong pitching from both sides kept this one an extremely tight game right to the very finish.
Yeah, TCU it felt like was threatening in basically every inning. I might have to go back and double check, but I'm pretty sure that TCU had at least one base runner reach in all 8 or 9 innings of this game. So TCU had runners on base constantly, and I have to bring up Cole Fontenelle again because he just gives you such a good at bat when he's up there. He works full count walks. He uses the other side of the field. I know we've talked about his hitting ability before, but we saw teams time and time again in this tournament give Braden Taylor free passes and pitch around him, particularly right-handers. Left-handers not so much because it's obviously a tougher matchup for a left-handed hitter, but you give him a free pass, you don't give him competitive at bats, then you have to face Cole Fontenelle and had a sacrifice fly in the first inning, had an RBI ground out earlier in the game, and even if you're not getting hits, you're still recording RBIs and giving the team productive at bats. So Cole Fontenelle did a nice job of getting the offense started in this game. And, unfortunately, there was another base running mistake early in this game. Austin Davis was kind of caught in no man's land on a potential, might have been a delayed steal call that just wasn't executed very well because it just looked like an awkward play. And Davis wound up being
He kind of
tagged
stopped
out.
like 80% of the way there. He kind of stopped
Hmm.
instead of making it to the
Yeah,
base
and
for
it's one of those
forcing a tag.
plays. Yeah, and it's one of those plays too where there was a lead runner at third base. So typically in that spot, if you're a base runner and you get caught in a pickle between first and second, try to stay out there as long as you can to try and, you know, allow that third base runner to go home. And instead, he just, kind of gave up on the play, and that was the end of that. But TCU
And it was
did.
2 outs too, though, is the problem. It
Mhm.
you leave a man standing at third. You've got runners at the corners with 2 outs, and you've got an opportunity. Uh, with the top of the order up, you've got Nunez at bat, and you've got an opportunity there to get a base hit and score a run. And if you're going to be aggressive there, you got to just be aggressive and
Mhm.
make them make that tag. But yeah, that was a tough play early in this one.
And you never want to make the third out on the bases either. I feel like that's a fundamental thing in baseball that goes back to when you start playing when you're young is don't make the third out on the bases, particularly if you're going to get caught stealing and it's a close play, it's one thing, but if you're getting caught in a rundown or getting backpicked or whatever, then you just look silly. But the Frogs ultimately did come through offensively later in this game. Elijah Nunez, or as they were calling him on the broadcast all week long, Eli Nunez, with the RBI single in the sixth inning to give TCU I think a 3-1 lead at that point, and then Austin Davis had probably the biggest hit of the game for TCU, making up for that base running mistake, hitting a deep fly ball to center field. Ultimately was an RBI double. He went 2 for 2 in this game and also walked twice. So he was on base 4 times for TCU. That hit was by far the biggest hit of the game, in my opinion. A much needed insurance run, and then get between Garrett Wright and Ben Abel coming in after Sam Stottenborough and shutting the door. Super impressive from the two of them. 6 strikeouts over the last 4 1/3, and Abel came in the fifth inning in kind of a hairy spot after Stottenborough left. There were a couple of runners on base, and he was able to get out of it and executed some pretty nice pitches before giving the ball to Garrett Wright. So really impressed from what those two guys were able to do. And defensively, I thought TCU played a really clean game as well. You had some really nice plays on the infield that kept some base runners off. And um, looking at this game, I think that base running mistake by Davis early on was really the only noticeable mistake that TCU made in this game. Connolly early coming out for Virginia, I felt like TCU made him work over the first, 4 innings or so. He was well over 80 pitches by that point, and any of these teams, the earlier you can force them to go into the bullpen, the better. And TCU was able to force Virginia into its bullpen pretty early, and ultimately were able to get a couple of timely hits later on, and uh, rallied behind the defense and the good pitching down the stretch to win this game. And another win over a national seed. This was 5 wins, I think, for TCU over a top 16 seed in this tournament. I know they beat Arkansas twice, Indiana State twice, and then Virginia. So with that win, TCU improved to 5-0 against national seeds prior to the Florida game, of course. But really encouraging to see TCU. As a fan, you have to be very pleased with how they stacked up against some of these elite teams that have been playing high level baseball, all season long. So um, overall, it was a really well played game. Again, another one-run game, as most of these contests have been. A lot of one-run games at this College World Series, a lot of high drama, and TCU was able to come out on top in this one.
Yeah, and for Virginia, their superstar player is All-American catcher Kyle Teal, and he went 0 for 4 in this game with 2 strikeouts. And even after going 0 for 4, his season batting average is over 400. He still hit 407 for the season. So um, to be able to hold that offense, that Virginia team, to just 3 runs, to hold some of the big bats and the elite players that they have up and down the lineup um, to have such a bad day against the Frogs, and in a game that it wasn't. Sam Stottenborough is probably not considered the ace. I think we would say that's Cole Klecker. So for a game that is Stottenborough and Garrett Wright and Ben Abel to hold this offense down, just an incredible performance to survive and advance into the next elimination game after this one.
Yep, and TCU got that uh, much desired salty run back, I think, against Oral Roberts on Tuesday. I know we polled some of the TCU fans on Twitter to see who they wanted to play in that second elimination game, Florida or Oral Roberts. And I think more TCU fans wanted to play Florida just because they felt more comfortable having to just beat Florida once and not twice, and then getting Oral Roberts probably feeling more comfortable being able to come back and beat that team twice. But nevertheless, it was Oral Roberts that TCU played for the second time in this tournament on Tuesday. And the two big things we'll talk about right off the bat. The first was TCU getting a big inning really for the first time in this tournament, scoring 4 runs in the fifth inning. Cole Fontenelle, like clockwork, had an RBI single in this inning. Anthony Silva comes through the 2-run single, and TCU builds a 5-run lead. And we get to a play middle late part of the game, and this is kind of a viral Twitter moment as well, where um, Carson Bowen, I believe it was, hits a ground ball to the left side of the infield. You have Elijah Nunez on second base. You have Austin Davis on third base. And the shortstop for Virginia, or not Virginia, Oral Roberts, makes a pretty smart play here. Uh, Catches Nunez hanging off the bag a little bit too far. And instead of throwing to first and getting the out there on Bowen, Oral Roberts gets Nunez in a rundown. And ultimately, it winds up in a situation where Davis is just standing on third base. He's not even trying to go home. Nunez slides headfirst into the bag. The Oral Roberts infielder tags Nunez out and then comes in with so much force at the third base bag that
Flying in.
Austin Davis he's forcibly taken off the bag because of the infielder diving in to make the play. As a result of that, Davis stops touching third base and then gets tagged by the same player who tagged out Nunez. They called him safe on the field. They ultimately challenged the call. They go to review after Oral Roberts challenges the call because the third baseman, and I don't know if that was, I can't remember if it was Blaze Brothers or whoever was playing third base for Oral Roberts was saying, go to replay right away because Davis might be out. And good Lord, they took way too long to review this call. And look, I understand that replay is there for a reason to get these calls correct, but when you're taking, it had to have been 5 minutes, roughly 5, 6 minutes looking at this call. And ultimately they reverse the call. They say that Davis is out. So it ultimately was a double play because the infielder forcibly pushed the TCU base runner off the base and then tagged him and he's out apparently. Like they explained the rule. None of it makes sense to me. I think that was one of the worst calls that I've seen in a college baseball game. It makes absolutely no sense. They say that at the umpire's discretion, they can reward the base runner the base. They apparently they decided not to do that after reviewing the call. I really the way they explained it was when they go to review, the only thing they can review is whether the runner is out or safe. They can't review the umpire's
Right.
discretion, which like that doesn't make sense to me at all. Like if
Well,
the
then you're right.
umpire,
It shouldn't have been a review at all at that point. The discretion had already been given, and that's not reviewable, right?
yeah, and so I don't know how that because this rule is obviously going to have to be changed or tweaked going into next season because this play basically sets the precedent that as a fielder, you can forcibly remove a base runner from a base in an attempt to make a play and then just tag that person out and they're out too. It makes no sense. People on social media, not only TCU fans, but fans of some of the other teams that were watching this game were just like, you guys got hosed. Like, this is ridiculous. I don't know, Anthony, what were your thoughts on this play and just the immediate reaction and then your reaction to, I guess, the commentary that you saw?
Well, I was just kind of lost of how is this even possible? Because, yeah, like you said, like, why would then on every pickoff throw, on every attempted steal, on every close play at any base, why would the fielder not just then like grab the guy and move him out of the way and apply a tag, and then they're out. That's there's no way that that's allowable in the rules. I'm not an expert on baseball rules, but I can't imagine that that is something that is intended to be part of the game of baseball. Is I don't know, tackling people off of bases. I think the umpires here should have just saved themselves and said the video evidence is inconclusive, so we're going to go with the play on the field and it's safe. And then you don't have to make what is obviously the incorrect call, because if they're saying, well, on a technicality we have to call him out, you
Mhm.
could just not. You could have just, I mean, he barely was off the base, if he was even off the base. I mean, from the replays that I've seen, his spikes are like it's just barely off the base. I I was kind of shocked that they went with this call. I think they could have just saved themselves a lot of trouble and just said, we can't figure it out from looking at the screen, so we're just gonna let he's safe there and carry on. Um,
A- And I think, moving forward, if there's a way around this, what they can say, I guess, is if the umpire is going to use his discretion to reward the base runner the base in that kind of situation, that should not be a challengeable
yeah,
call. That
you
that
should
should
have
be a
discretion
call
in the
where
review as well.
you have to go with
Yeah.
the umpire's discretion, and because I think by that the umpire called Davis, I think, safe for that reason. Like he saw that he was forcibly taken off the bag. He has the right to that bag, and so you shouldn't be able to challenge that. That should just be a call where you go with the discretionary ruling by the umpire. I think that's how you right that ship. But fortunately for the Frogs, that my first thought after all of that unfolded, in addition to just how bad the call was, is this going to be a play that comes back to hurt
Mm-hmm.
TCU? Because if Oral
It was a
Roberts has
huge
been
huge opportunity. Yeah, I mean,
Oral Roberts has
you
been
had two
coming
in scoring
back.
position. Yeah.
hmm Oral Roberts is coming back in so many of these games late in the season.
Yeah.
Is this going to be a play that kind of gets the ball rolling for them and allows them to come back? But that fortunately was not the case. TCU got some really, really good relief pitching in this game. We'll start with Cam Brown because Cam Brown got the start. You knew that he would have to get a start at some point. You can't just throw Cole Klecker and Sam Staudenborough every game. Of course, Luis Rodriguez has been out for a while with that shoulder injury, so Cam Brown has been getting those, third spots in the rotate, third time around. He's been getting the ball, and his leash is very tight for what it's worth. He only threw 3 innings in this game, but he didn't allow a hit. He struck out 3 batters, and he got it done in 46 pitches. So it was very much a very Cam Brown-esque outing. He didn't give up much hard contact, but he had 3 walks, 3 strikeouts and 3 walks in 3 innings. That's just been kind of the par for the course for him throughout the season. But Hunter Hodges and Cohen Feezer are the two guys that I think uh, deserve the most praise for the way they performed in this game. Hunter Hodges was making his first appearance since June 4th. Been a little bit for him. His longest outing of the season was only 2 innings, and so he came in through 2 1/3, struck out 2 batters. Some really nice defensive plays as well. Trey Richardson made a great play throwing across his body, coming in from second base to get an out. Braden Taylor also had a really, really good play at third base. So the defense was definitely backing him up, but Hunter Hodges came through in a game where Ben Abelt has pitched a lot, Luke Savage has pitched a lot, Garrett Wright. How fresh are those guys? Not really. You're going to need one or two guys that haven't pitched very much to step up and give TCU some big innings. And with Cam Brown only going 3 innings as well, you knew that some guys were going to have to step up. And Savage didn't look his best in this game. Maybe he was a little worn from the previous outing, but or maybe Oral Roberts was just seeing him well. Could be a combination of the two, but Hunter Hodges was very good, and Cohen Feezer coming in for the final 2 innings had 2 strikeouts. Had a little bit of a hairy situation there at the end. I was not gonna lie, I was starting to sweat a little bit there at the end. It's a 6-1 ball game, and Feezer's got 2 outs, but then you have back-to-back singles and a walk. Oral Roberts is able to load the bases, and you're just like, oh, dude, come on now. Like, don't let this get started. Let's just put this away. And to make it worse, it went to a full count. So you had
Full
bases
count
loaded,
on the
full
yeah.
count, 2 outs, guy who hasn't pitched since June 2nd, looking to lock it down and throws a awesome cutter right over the out, catches the outside part of the plate, a pitch that maybe some umpires don't call a strike, but I think this umpire was giving the outside part of the plate for most of this game. So Cohen Feezer executes a slider on the outside, or a cutter on the outside part of the plate for a called third strike, and ultimately that seals the game. So um, very happy to see TCU come back and get that salty run back revenge against Oral Roberts. Again, a big offensive inning, 4 runs in the fifth really got TCU comfortable with a sizable lead, and Hunter Hodges, Cohen Feezer throwing 4 1/3 innings, striking out 4 batters. TCU again playing excellent defense in the infield, and just that strange base running play is the only, I guess you can call it a negative. Although we all know that the call was not good, but other than that particular moment of the game, TCU played a very good game, a much more clean game than the first matchup against Oral Roberts, in my opinion. So really happy to see that bounce back.
Yeah, most definitely. No errors on either side of the coin on that one. Neither team committed an error, and yeah, I mean TCU just gets the one big inning. Other than that, it's really a toss up, and it's not even that big of an inning. I mean, 4 runs. Um, Oral Roberts certainly impressed on this national stage. I think that's there's no question that they deserve to be in this position. They obviously earned their way there and played every bit. I mean, their game against Florida was right down to the final at bat as well. So all kudos to them as well. I mean, nothing to take away there other than that they were a strong program, and TCU got the better of them on this day and got to move on to the Wednesday game in the first of what could have been a 2-game series with the Florida Gators, as Florida emerged from the winners bracket to take on TCU, and Florida, the number 2 overall seed. We had said pretty much since the bracket came out originally that Florida was the team on this side of the bracket that was the scariest team. And obviously they were the number 2 seed. They were the top seed on this side of the bracket. They were always going to be that, but they certainly it wasn't a case like Arkansas where maybe the season performance didn't match true to life. Florida absolutely lived up to it and came out here on Wednesday and uh, right away opened the game with a 2-run home run, and that pretty well carried the day for the next 6 or 7 innings before TCU tied it up late and um, surrendered that lead in the top of the ninth to walk away with a 3-2 defeat and end this run in Omaha. A lot happened in this game. This was just earlier today. Uh, Russ, what's your top takeaway from this Florida game?
I think the biggest concern coming in was having to face Jack Caglione because for those who don't know, he's a two-way standout, very much a Shohei Ohtani type player who's a masher at the plate, 31 home runs on the season, hitting over 300, and throws 100 miles per hour from the left side too. And for TCU that has uh, 2 hitters at the top of the lineup who are left-handers, if Jack Caglione is on, it's going to be a long, difficult day. But he's also had issues throwing strikes at certain times this season. He's walked a lot of guys, and that really was the story for Florida early in this game was Jack Caglione was very inconsistent. He did have 4 strikeouts over the first 2 innings, but he also had 3 walks and 2 hit batters over the first 2 innings. So he was having to work hard in this game. He threw 35 pitches in the first inning. TCU was showing patience, forcing him to throw strikes, and he was kind of all over the map early in the game. Braden Taylor hits a RBI single in the bottom of the first. That was TCU's first and only hit of the game for quite a while because Caglione eventually did start to throw some more strikes over the third and fourth innings and showed some of that electric stuff and why he's one of the more talented players in all of college baseball. But TCU made him work early on, and Cole Klecker getting the start for this game. This was the second start of the College World Series, and overcame that home run in the first, really settled in nicely and got through some important innings for TCU. He ultimately pitched five plus innings, I think. He might have gotten
Extremely
into the
impressive
sixth,
coming
and
off just pitching, a few days earlier.
he's pitched a lot. I mean, you go back to Indiana State, he threw 101 pitches in 7 innings against the Sycamores, and then comes back, throws 87 pitches, 5 innings against Oral Roberts. And there was a report that he texted Kirk Saarloos last night and said that I'm ready to go. And for a freshman in an elimination game on I can't 3 or 4 days rest might not be 100% juiced up in that arm, but he battled for TCU in this game. And then Ben Abel came in and was very good over the latter innings for TCU. He threw 3 innings, he struck out 5 batters, and gave TCU a chance to potentially tie and take the lead. But unfortunately, this is just one of those games for TCU where it was very much like the Virginia game where it felt like TCU was constantly threatening. TCU had the bases loaded twice in this game. The
Twice.
first time was in the first inning. Of course, they score 1 run there, but they loaded the bases again in the fifth inning and couldn't score. TCU left 10 runners on base in this game, and um, it was similar to Oral Roberts in the Tuesday game because Oral Roberts had some runners that were stranded as well. And in these high level contests that again, another 1 run game for TCU. That's 3 1 run games in this tournament. It just comes down to which team is going to come through in those situations. And uh, Florida struggled a bit in these runners in scoring position situations as well. But when you load the bases twice and you come away with only 1 run, it's going to be hard to win. Even though you pitched really well, Klecker did his job. Ben Abelt did his job. Garrett Wright came in, pitched the ninth inning, gave up a run that was charged to Abelt because Abelt gave up a double and was replaced. But it was kind of a fluke play where it's a ground ball to the shortstop and Anthony Silva makes a good clean scoop and he's deep in the hole there at short, right where the infield sand meets the outfield grass, and he tries to plant his foot and he slips and he can't make the throw and a run scores and Florida takes a 3-2 lead. And we already talked about the Braden Taylor 110 mile per hour, 407 foot. I mean, we're potentially not just the Braden Taylor play, but if Anthony Silva doesn't slip on the grass and make that throw, TCU gets out of that inning tied 2-2. Braden Taylor could potentially step up and hit a walk-off home run. And if that swing is made, I don't know, a tenth of a second earlier than it was, it's probably gone over the right field fence. So this was a really, really good game. Um, I wouldn't say either team really deserved to lose. I felt like both teams really played well enough to win this game, but it just came down to a couple of kind of fluky plays with Silva not being able to plant and make that throw, and Braden Taylor coming up a couple feet away from a home run. So it was a tough loss and a tough way to end the season. But if we're looking for moral victories, and I'm not trying to be that guy to always be looking for moral victories, but it's good to see TCU's season. If they're going to lose a game, they went down fighting and played to their best ability, and I think played well enough to win this game. So to take the number two ranked team in this tournament to a one run game in the ninth inning and come a couple feet away from possibly tying it and sending it into extra innings, I don't think you could have asked for much of a better effort from TCU.
And yeah, I mean, Caglione with the bat in his hand did nothing. 0 for 4 in this one. Again, guy up for all the awards, the National Golden Spikes Award, All American, leading one of the top home run hitters in the country. I don't know. He's been going back and forth with somebody else out there, maybe the LSU guy, but he has like over 30 home runs on the season, and he was held entirely in check with the bat in his hand. And Florida did all of their damage with 2 outs in this game. The home run was with 2 outs, and obviously the single at Silva was also with 2 outs in the ninth inning, and uh, that 2 out hitting was really the difference in the game. Florida had 5 hits with 2 outs. TCU only had 1. TCU 1 for 9 with 2 outs. That's just not going to get it done. I mean, you have to convert those opportunities. Obviously, those runners left on base, runners left in scoring position. It's just brutal. I mean, TCU with the 2 opportunities with the bases loaded, to not come away with crooked numbers on the scoreboard out of those is it's going to be a hard thing to swallow, I think, as they go into this offseason and turn the page to their, going to play with USA Baseball and into Cape Cod leagues and into fall baseball and all of that into next season. It'll be something that I'm sure weighs, and as Braden Taylor likely goes forward into the Major League Baseball draft, just thinking back that if that ball had been hit in any major league ballpark, any minor league ballpark, probably any other college ballpark, um, that's a home run, and he's the hero. And instead, it's just a long, loud out, and that's the Casey at bat. There's no joy in Frogville, and that's the way baseball goes, and it's but you lose a game to the number 2 team, and you get to this point. There's a lot to look forward to. The freshman, I mean, Ben Abeld in this game again, just he continues to be incredibly impressive. Obviously, the double that you give up at the top of the ninth there, the leadoff double, it puts you in a very difficult spot for Garrett Wright to come in and try to close that door. I think there's probably, I think that one is maybe one you'd be more questioning of. Should Wright have come in just to start off the ninth inning? Abelt had already pitched 3 full innings, had already thrown over 50 pitches. That's a long outing coming off a long week that he's been putting on a heavy workload for the Frogs. So, maybe that's a question there, but I don't know. I guess it's hard to close this out on anything but kind of a sour note, because it is, I think this just happened earlier today. The wound is still fresh. Like I said, I think it feels like, you said it didn't feel like either team should have lost. It did feel like, well, we should run this back tomorrow. It felt like
Mm,
TCU should take this game so that we get set up for that winner take all contest. I feel like we've deprived ourselves and college baseball fans by missing out on that, and that's unfortunate. But um, that brings us to the close of this incredible athletic season for TCU sports. I mean, um, we'll probably continue to look back on this as the greatest calendar run in the history of TCU sports. I mean, the obviously football team goes to the national championship, basketball team wins a game in the NCAA tournament, and baseball makes it to the semifinals of the College World Series. Is just, it's the kind of season most athletic programs would hope to have in a decade. um, that run of success. And for TCU to accomplish that in this season, it's incredible. And we're so lucky to be Horned Frogs and to be covering this team and to be able to continue to cover them and all the exciting things that they're going to bring forward in the 2023-24 athletic season.
Yeah, the brand is strong, as Jeremiah Donati, athletic director, tweeted out earlier today, and it's hard not to get excited already about how good this TCU baseball team could be next season with all of the freshmen that we've mentioned: Anthony Silva, Carson Bowen, Louis Rodriguez, Cole Klecker, Ben Abel. Logan Maxwell had some very impressive at bats over the last few games. I know we didn't talk about him, but Sarlus finally unleashed him and started putting him in the lineup and giving him starts in left field the last few games. And he had to have been on base 6 or 7 times over the last 3 games. So
Yeah, he
he's,
had two hit by pitches in this Florida game.
hey,
He
you
was
wear it
wearing
and
them.
you
Yeah,
get on however you can. And he's only a sophomore. Cohen Feezer is only a sophomore. So those two guys are going to be candidates for larger roles next year. And then, Braden Taylor, I think the expectation is as a potential first round pick that he'll declare for the draft. But you also have some juniors that I think are going to have some interesting decisions. Cole Fontenelle had a awesome finish to his season and put up great numbers. Does he come back for his senior season, or does he potentially pursue a professional career? Curtis Byrne, who really settled into his DH role and hit the ball well toward the end of the year, does he return in that role? Does he try to change positions? Does he transfer? Does he go to the MLB draft? What does Trey Richardson do? He's a junior. So there are going to be some interesting decisions, I think, from some of these junior players, but so much talent still coming back. And I, I don't know if I'm getting too far ahead of myself when I say this, but when I watch him play, Anthony Silva is TCU's next superstar
oh,
player.
no question.
I think it's pretty obvious with how he has played the field, with how he has hit the ball. I know we've talked about it several times that the expectation was he was going to come in and play great defense right away. The expectation was not that he would come in and hit 330 and deliver clutch at bats time and time again. Clutch at bat in this game today, hitting an RBI double that was nearly a home run to the deep part of the park in left center. So Anthony Silva to me just seems to have that makeup of he's going to be the next great TCU player. And with Braden Taylor getting ready to potentially end his Frog career, Anthony Silva is someone I'm going to be extremely excited to watch next year. Not that the other freshmen aren't by any means, because Carson Bowen hit the ball extremely well this year. I think hit over 350, um, and was hitting out of the number two hole practically the entire second half of the season, while also playing great defense. Ben Abel was a lockdown reliever toward the end of the season. Louis Rodriguez, Cole Klecker, they both gave TCU quality outings toward the end of the season. All of those guys did very well in their own right. I'm just saying, I think Anthony Silva is that dude. He gives off that energy to me, and I'm really excited to see what he can do next year. And I hope that he's a player that TCU can really build around over this next season or two.
Oh yeah, he's a no doubt superstar. I mean, he's we knew coming in that he was this high prospect and all of that, but he's lived up to that and more, absolutely. And certainly excited to see what he'll bring to the Horned Frogs going forward. It'll be interesting to see what this staff brings in through the transfer portal. Now that the season's closed, I'm sure there'll be a lot more activity there. I'm sure there will be some outbound departures from this Horned Frog roster that will look to transfer elsewhere, as that's just the nature of things in this era of free transfers and NIL and everything. So I think there'll be a strong push for the Frogs to keep this squad together and continue to add big names. I mean, bringing in Trey Richardson and Austin Davis were absolutely critical to this team achieving anything this season. So bringing them in through the transfer portal, and so we'll see what comes in the coming weeks and months forward on that front. I think obviously TCU is an extremely attractive destination for anyone looking to, play big time baseball and for a big time program with other big time players and big time coaches, and will look to bring in some big time names that may be out there on the transfer marketplace.
Yeah, one thing that I will float out, I don't know if we brought this up last week, but Ben Hampton, who's a left-handed pitcher from West Virginia, he is reportedly committed to TCU for the upcoming season. So that's one
That's right.
player that we can uh, look forward to being in a TCU uniform next year. He was a first-team All Big 12 player this year. Was a consistent starter for West Virginia, has been over the last 3 seasons, and is going to be coming over to possibly compete for a spot in the rotation or a significant spot out of the bullpen next year. So that's already one big name. Maybe taking a look at how Austin Davis fared with TCU this year and wants a little piece of that action. So it's kind of got me thinking a little bit. I put a tweet out on our Frogs of War Twitter that just in the age of the transfer portal and the NIL, in this era, when you have immediate success, it seems to warrant immediate success in recruiting and in the transfer portal. And we've seen it with TCU's football program. We're seeing it with TCU's basketball program with the offseason that it's had, having the number 3 ranked transfer class in college basketball right now. Maybe rising up to number 2 if things continue to go south with Huggy Bear in West Virginia. But, um, with this baseball team, players in the Big 12 are going to take notice. And I think players around college baseball are going to take notice. And you have a chance to join a team that won 44 games and made it to the semifinals of the College World Series with a lot of talent coming back. I mean, as we said, this is not a team loaded with graduate transfers. Yes, there are some, Austin Davis, Sam Stottenborough. There really aren't. I mean, who's a senior on this team? I can't even not Elijah Nunez, not Luke Boyers, not Trey Richardson, not Cole Fontenelle, not Curtis Bird. These are all guys that could be back next year. So if you want to join up with the squad, you have a great chance to reload, and especially if you're a Big 12 player. I mean, I know Texas has got some guys leaving. I know Baylor just had a really talented shortstop enter the portal. Come to Fort Worth. Come to Fort Worth. I promise it's a great place to be.
No doubt. I think that probably closes it on this baseball season and on this incredible TCU athletic season. And just one other thing before we close tonight: the NBA draft is Thursday, is tomorrow, the 22nd, tomorrow night. So maybe we'll hear the names of Mike Miles Jr. or Damian Ball potentially in the second round, or at least find out where their next steps are in professional basketball. So looking forward to that for some former Horned Frogs looking to take the next step into the professional ranks. Other than that, we're headed into the the dark off season before we get to football season, and we'll be getting into all of the exciting football preview stuff here over the next couple months, as we're just about 10-ish weeks away from opening kickoff with Colorado and Deion Sanders and that whole new squad coming into town. So a lot of exciting things ahead, and we'll be excited to continue to bring you coverage of everything going on with TCU athletics. And thanks for following us. Thanks for listening here today. And always we appreciate all of anyone who listens or follows or interacts. We enjoy bringing this TCU news to you, and we enjoy the interaction. So with that, I think we'll close it tonight. Go Frogs.
Go Frogs.